As I tried to figure out what to say in this speech, I talked to a lot of people. I talked to my lead teacher, my coworkers, my AVID certified educator cohort, and the words that kept coming up were intentional and risk taker. When I first started out as a struggling teacher, I struggled with behaviors and with teaching. I was willing to take risks and try new things, but I wasn't intentional about which new things to try, when and how I tried them, or what I was trying to do. Maybe some of you can relate. AVID helped me to put those pieces together, when to do things and why to do them. AVID has drastically changed how I teach and how much my students learn. I'd like to tell you about 3 times I intentionally took risks using what AVID taught me and how those risks paid off. Last year, I took a risk and joined the AVID Certified Educator, or ACE, inaugural cohort. I am so glad I did. What I've learned in ACE has transformed my classes through regular reflection and the use of a self-assessment rubric, taking my classes from manageable and bearable to enjoyable and successful. Throughout the ACE process, I learned about the 5 foundations of instruction: relational capacity, appropriate learning environment, diagnostic teaching, clear learning objectives, and strategic lesson design. The biggest challenge of the 5 foundations for me was positive relationships. Building relationships was never my strong suit. In fact, it was my biggest weakness. Everyone talks about how important relationships are, but no one ever teaches you how to build them. But ACE did. ACE taught me that relational capacity is the key to pretty much all other aspects of a successful classroom, and that the way to build positive relationships and create an appropriate learning environment is to intentionally and routinely engage in relational capacity building activities in all your classes, with all your students, all year. Knowing that building relationships was my weakness, I took the risk and jumped all in on relational capacity. No slow rollout for me. For the first 2 weeks of school, I planned at least 1 relational building activity each day. I strategically planned for the activities to build in the stages of relational capacity that move from low risk to high risk, to push the students to get to know each other and me a little better each day. We started out with a whirl around to share our names and our favorite movie. The next day we did Would You Rather. Next we discovered some uncommon commonalities to get comfortable working together. And by the end of the week, all of my students in all of my classes were collaborating in random small groups to compete in Family Feud. The results were amazing. I could see it almost immediately. Students were talking to each other, using friendly language. They were comfortable working with anyone in the class, not just their friends, and they were willing to take risks academically and try wicker instructional strategies. Students were more engaged, more focused, and learning more. I had never gotten my classes to this place of positive learning culture this early ever before. Around December, I realized we needed a tune-up. My 9th graders were falling into old middle school habits, talking over me, calling names, communicating poorly between themselves and with me. I realized our relational capacity was slipping, and I had to maintain it. It was something we had to work on all year. So I took a risk, and I paused the science content, and we did a relational capacity activity called partner drawing. I chose this activity intentionally because my students' communication skills were breaking down, and partner drawing demands that partners communicate effectively if they're going to accomplish the drawing task. By the end of the activity, my students were collaborating better. They were speaking with more positive language, and best of all, they were having fun. Once again, I was grateful for my ACE experience. It helped me to intentionally build the relationships at the beginning and also maintain them all year. As a result, my students were willing to take academic risks and they trusted me. They knew I wasn't going to waste their time, and everything I had planned has a purpose and was chosen intentionally. The true test of everything I learned in ACE came one day in April, when the internet crashed midday. No hope of return. After a moment of panic, after all, everything is stored on the cloud now, including our textbooks, I realized I could pivot my plan and have my 9th grade science students do an AVID tutorial. For those who don't know, an AVID tutorial is a collaborative inquiry process where students work together in small groups to address individual points of confusion. My students were unfamiliar with the tutorial process, so I walked them through it and I turned them loose. They worked together with no complaint on their points of confusion for a solid 60 minutes. They didn't even need me. I stood back in awe. I was so proud of them. This never would have happened in past years because I hadn't built the positive relationships and culture that could support such a risk. Because of ACE and the risks I took, my class has been used as a model classroom for new teachers to observe. And this coming year, I am proud to serve as a staff developer for the next cohort of ACE teachers. all things that I achieved because I took a risk with ACE. So if you take anything away from this speech, I hope it is that you will use what you've learned here at Summer Institute to intentionally take risks and try new things in your classroom. Take the time to slow down, to build the relationships, and to use the strategies to increase rigor and engagement in all of your classes. I'm sure glad I did, and my students are too. Thank you.